Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. In this video, what we're going to do is cover Hasura. And Hasura is a really great tool for creating a GraphQL server. Now what's great about Hasura is that you don't have to go ahead and code out your GraphQL API. You don't have to define your schema, you don't have to define your mutations and your queries, you don't even have to resolve the data with any resolvers. All you have to do is create a database and define the schema in the database, and what Hasura does is it takes that database and it builds a GraphQL server for you. And within that server, we can have all of the queries and mutations that we typically need for our application. So let's go over here. This is a really great example of how things work. So let's say in our database, we add some sort of users table. And if we wanted to make this SQL query, we can just do a simple select star or select ID name from profile where the ID is equal to the user ID. So we created this. What Hasura is going to do is build a GraphQL server where we can actually query for, well, the things that we defined inside of our database. So what our app can do is simply do a query like this. Let me zoom in here once more. So we can do a simple query like this where we can get the profile ID and name, and that is going to send it to Hasura, and then Hasura is going to make a SQL query to get our database, to get the data from the database. And then of course it's going to send it right back to the app through the GraphQL server. And so this is really cool, and it's a really nice and quick and easy way to create a GraphQL API. Now there's multiple servers that that Hasura supports. So it supports Postgres, MongoDB, Oracle, Amazon, Aurora. I've never heard of this one. MySQL, Google BigQuery, and Elastic. Well, I guess these ones are coming soon, but these ones over here are the ones that are supported. So there's a lot, and you can actually do GraphQL and REST if you want to, but of course we're gonna do GraphQL because that's typically what it's used for. Okay, so let's get started with working with Hasura by clicking in login, and what this should do is prompt you to log in either by Google or GitHub. Now once you do that, you should see Hasura Cloud, and this is going to be a hosted instance of Hasura. So it's going to host Hasura for us as well as our GraphQL API. We should also, off the bat, get a free project. And this is where we're going to be configuring our database as well as creating our GraphQL server. So let's go over here to Launch Console. And in the console, this is where we're going to be doing the majority of the work. This is where we're going to be connecting to the database, defining the database schema. We're also going to be playing around with GraphQL with the GraphQL interface. So the first thing that we need to do, of course, is connect to our database. So let's go over here and click on data. And there's actually multiple different ways that we can connect to our database. If we already have a database, and we're going to be using Postgres for this. So let's say we already have a Postgres database in AWS RDS or Microsoft Azure or Google Cloud Platform, we can simply just get the credentials, the database URI or URL, and paste them right over here. And this Hasura instance will go ahead and connect to it. But we're not going to do that because that's way too much trouble. Instead, what we're going to do is create a Heroku database. Now you are going to need a Heroku account for this. I already created it. But once you go over here and click on Create Database, it's either going to prompt you with Heroku credentials, or it's going to just create it for you if you're already logged in and have an account. So let's just go ahead and wait until we are connected to our database. And there we go. We are connected. Awesome. So you can see here that we have our default database, as you can see, and we can go inside of this public directory. Now in this public directory, we can create multiple different things. I'm going to hide these tips because they're pretty annoying. We can create multiple different things. Specifically, what we can do is we can start creating tables. Remember, a SQL database, we have tables. That's how we store our data. So let's actually go ahead and create a very simple blogging application where a user can create a blog, and also users can comment on blogs as well. So let's go over here. We're gonna click on create table. And firstly, let's go ahead and create some users. So we're gonna say users. So that's the table name. Let me zoom in here some more. There we go. I think that's good enough. So that's gonna be the table name, users. And then over here, we're gonna define the columns inside of the table. So we're gonna go here. The first thing that I wanna do is an ID, because of course we need an ID. And over here, we can define the type. So you can see here, we have integer, integer, auto increment, text, Boolean, there's a bunch of different types as you can see here. Now for this case, I'm gonna use integer auto increment. And over here, you can see that we can give it a default option. Of course, I don't wanna do that. Over here, we can say that this is nullable or not. Of course, we want this defined. And here we can say that this is unique. Now, of course, we want the ID to be unique, but I'm not going to state that it is unique here. Instead, what I'm going to do is right here in the primary key, I'm going to define that the ID is a primary key. So that is going to be automatically on its own. It's going to figure out that, hey, this should be unique. We should also give our users a username, and this is going to be of type text. And then over here, we could give it a default. I'm not going to do that, of course. We can make it nullable, but let's make it unique. So we're going to make this unique. Let's also give our users a gender. This is going to be a Boolean value, so true or false, whether you're male or female. Let's actually make this nullable. Let's also give an age. This is going to be an integer. We could also go over here and look at some more numeric types. So we can use big int, small int, money, double. So whatever it is that we want. I am gonna use just an integer. That's okay. And I think that's pretty much all that we need. So what we can do now is create our table. So we can add this table to our database. So now, well, we created this users table inside of our database. All right, that's pretty awesome. So now what we can do if we want to is manually insert some rows inside of this table. So for example, maybe I can say Laith Harb is the username, gender false for male, let's say, and I am 24 years of age. So I can go ahead and save this. And what it did is it inserted inside of the table. Now over here, you can go to browse and you can see the data. How incredible is that? That is pretty cool. I really like the interface of this. This is pretty amazing. We can also over here modify if we want to add different columns or modify existing ones, we can do that. Here we can define relationships, which we'll look at a little bit later. And over here you can see some of the roles. And for now we can just leave it as is. However, well, where is the GraphQL server aspect of this? Where's the GraphQL API? Now, by automatically creating this table, we're going to get a lot of different query options as well as mutation options. So let's go over here to test GraphQL API. So over here. And now what we can do is test out our API. So let's create a query. Let me zoom in here for you guys. And we're going to do users. So you can see here, we can automatically get the users. And over here, we can start asking them for exactly what we want. And over here, we can pick what we want. Let's say we want the user name, the ID, the gender, the age. And if I were to click on this, you can see that I get an array of users. And of course, if I add more users, well, we're going to see more users. All right, awesome. And of course, well, with GraphQL, you can selectively pick what you want. And as you can see here, we're getting exactly what we want. Okay, so that is users. However, maybe I want to get one user, because as you can see here, this is an array of users. Maybe I want to get one specific user. Now, in this case, we do only have one user. So let's say we have multiple users and we want to get the user with the ID of 1. How do we do that? Does Hasura also do that for us? Well, yes, it does. It creates a query. I think it's a little bit too big. So we can over here create a query. And inside of this query, we can get the users by the primary key. And then over here, we can define the ID of 1. So we can define the ID of 1. And then here, we can just take the username. So now if we were to execute this, you can see that we get an object, not an array, an object of this particular user. How awesome is that? All right, so we can also, of course, do multiple different things. We can also do aggregates if we want to, which we're not going to really look into in this course. And if we want, we can also ask Hasura to make the query for us. So maybe if we're not familiar with the query, we can say, okay, I wanna get a user by primary key. So I can go here, I can click that, and you can see that how this is going to look. Now I want the primary key to be 1 in this case, and I want to get the username and the gender, and there we go. You can see that that works. Awesome. We can probably do the same thing over here. So let's see here, we want the node, we want the age. So now you can see here that we're getting the aggregation of all ages, which is going to be 24. We can do that a little bit later once we perform mutations. So over here, this is queries. However, we also have the ability for mutations. So we can also have mutations in here. So let's go here and we're going to say mutation this time. And in our mutation, well, we can add a user. So over here, if we looked at it, you can see here we get these different options. How terrific is that? We get all of these options just by creating our table. So we can delete users, insert users, update users. We can insert user 1, delete user by primary key, update user by primary key. So we get all of these amazing CRUD operations. Let's go ahead and create one user. So we're going to go ahead and create this user. And then in here, we're going to define the object, which is going to be the user himself or herself. And then in here, we can supply it with the gender. And let's say this one is true for female. And let's also supply it with the age. Let's say, I don't know, 17. And let's also say the username is Holly. Holly is the username. And then of course we're going to select exactly what we want. Let's say we want the username. So now if we perform this mutation, you can see that, well, we actually performed the mutation. And if we went to our database and we took a look, if we scrolled here and we took a look at our users, you can see now we have this new user that was actually added to our database. And if I went ahead and I performed that query to get all of the users, so query users and then username, you can see here that we have an array of objects and we have both of those users. All right, let's go ahead and start working with other tables. We'll work on some of the other things as well. Maybe we can actually show you the aggregates first. So over here we have aggregates. Maybe we want to aggregate, we want to find the average age. So we can perform a query like this. And now you can see the average age is 20.5. How cool is that? And we can also find the max age if we want to, so 24. So we get the average age, the max age, and we can perform anything that we really want. Okay, cool. So let's go to our schema. Let's start creating some other tables, like the posts table and the comments table. And then what we need to do is we need to form a relationship between the two, which is actually going to introduce some more complicated aspects of Hasura. The next step in our journey is to create another table, which is going to be the posts table. Now what we have to do is also relate this posts table to the users table. Now specifically, a post should belong to a user, and a user can have multiple posts. So we're going to have a one-to-many relationship. And of course we're going to do that through a foreign key. So over here we're going to create post, and in here we can create our columns. Let's also supply it with an ID that auto increments. Let's make that our primary key. Now over here, let's just give the post a title, and we're going to give the post a title that's going to be text. And over here, let's give it some content. So the post is going to have a content. Let's scroll over here. Maybe we can use some other string type. I don't think we can actually. I was wondering if they had rich text or something like that, but I don't think so. So what we can just very simply do is just say text for this as well. Maybe we can also give it a created at. I think maybe we can click over here, frequently added columns. And what we can do is we can click on created at, and over here we can also say updated at. And what it does is this is going to be a timestamp, and it's going to default to right now, as you can see here. All right, so that's pretty much it. So that is the post. Now what we need to do is add a foreign key. So we're going to go over here. We're going to add a foreign key. And we're going to say that this table over here references the users table. And over here, so this is the column that we have. So what we're going to actually need to do is create a user ID field here, which is going to be our foreign key. So let's go here. Let's create a user ID, which is going to be an integer. And over here, we're going to say that we want to reference the users table. And now here, we want the user's ID to match the ID of the users table. Over here, we can also have some on update violations, on delete violations. So for example, if we want to delete our user, what do we want to do with all the posts? I say we go ahead and cascade, which means if we want to delete the user, we should also delete all of that user's posts. And then on update, maybe we can restrict that for now. All right, so let's go here. We're going to go ahead and save this. And we're going to add this table. And now we have a posts table. So let's just give it a little bit of time, and it successfully created the posts table. Now if we go to the relationship, you can see here that now a post is going to have, a user is going to have an array relationship with post, because the user can have multiple posts. So we can say add here. We want to add this relationship, and we can call this posts. And then over here, we can also add that exact same relationship. We can call that user. So now let's actually go to GraphQL. And now we can do the exact same thing. So over here, what we can do is let's actually do a mutation where we add a post. So we're going to over here, we're going to say insert post. And now over here, we need to supply it with, well, an object. So we're going to say the content is this is my post. And for the created at, we don't have to define that because we have a default. The title, let's give it a title of, let's enter some of this stuff here. Okay, let's give it a title, my post. And then we need to give it a user. So over here, we can also define the user ID. In this case, we'll define it as 1. Actually, let's again, every single time it reformats it and it's just an ugly format. All right, so now what we can do is we can create this post, and let's return the title, or returning. So we're gonna go here, returning, and we're gonna return the title. We can also, I think if we want, actually return the user and ask for the username if we want to. So what we can do here is we can insert this, and now you can see that, hey, we have inserted this post. If you go to our database, we should see if you go to our posts, let's click on our post. It's taking some time here. Come on. Let's go to our post. We should see a post here. And if we went all the way over here, you can see we have a user ID, and we also have a user. We can actually view the user himself. So the user is actually Laith Harb. So now you can see that we have a relationship. And we can actually query for this relationship really easily. So we can do here query. And let's say I want to get the user by primary key. Let's supply it with an ID of 1. And then here, let's say I want the username. But I can also get, if I want, the posts. And I can ask for, you know, the content, the ID, the whatever it is that I want. So I can get the content, the title. And if I were to run this query, you can see here that I actually get that and the relationships. So I highly encourage, as a challenge for you guys, try to do the comments on your own. I'm going to do it right now in like 5 seconds. So go ahead and pause the video if you want to try it out on your own. All right, so let's go ahead and do it. Hopefully you guys tried it out on your own. So in order to do this, let's create another table. So we're gonna say comments, and then in here, let's give it an ID, of course. So that's gonna be an auto increment integer. Let's also give it some of the default things like created at, updated at. We'll also give it, let's give it, well, the comment itself. So we'll just say content, and that's gonna be a text. And I think that's it. I think that's all we need. Let's define our primary ID or primary key. And then over here, let's think about the foreign IDs. So a comment can belong to multiple posts. So a post can have multiple comments, but a comment is going to belong to a post. Also, a user can have multiple comments, but one specific comment is always going to belong to one specific user. So over here, what we can do is we can just say post ID, and that's going to be an integer. And over here, we can say, what am I saying here? The user ID, that can also be an integer. So here we need to add some foreign keys. So we can say first, let's reference the posts. So we can say that the post ID is going to be referencing the ID in, this is the ID in the posts table. By the way, this is just kind of basic SQL. So if you don't understand this, maybe read up on foreign keys. You can also have a cascade over here, cascade on delete. So we can save this. And now what this is doing is it's adding the connection with the comments and the post. If we want, what we can do now is add another connection with the users. And then over here, we can say user ID belongs to this user. That's the foreign key. We can also have a cascade delete. We can save that. So now in order to actually create the table, we have to, well, create the table. And now what we have to do is to define the actual relationships, because right now, if I went over here and let's manually add a comment. So let's go here. We're gonna manually add a comment. Let's go here, insert row. We're gonna say this course sucks. Disliked, of course. This is what I get all the time, you guys. I'm joking. You guys are very kind. So over here, we're gonna go 1, 1. Please don't comment this. We're gonna have the ID. The post ID is 1. The user ID is 1. So we're gonna go ahead and save this. And now, and by the way, let me go ahead and show you if we try to add a post ID that doesn't correspond to any record, is gonna fail because we have that foreign key restraint. Just to show you, let's go here. Let's just add whatever. We'll add whatever content. Let's add like 33, and that should fail. As you can see here, we have a foreign key. So now that we have this, you might be thinking, okay, then maybe I can do something like, comments right over here. But that's actually not the case. You have to go ahead and define the relationship. So over here, we have to go to the posts, and we have to define that there is going to be a relationship. So over here, we're going to say that we're able to query for all the comments from the post. Now, if we want, we can also query from all of the comments from the user, as you can see here. However, this might not be very useful. We probably want to query the post and then the comments, so we can actually leave that relationship aside. And what I mean by that is you probably don't want to do something like this. Like this really doesn't make much sense, having query the user and then all of the comments for that specific user. Instead, what we could possibly do is maybe query for a post. So let's go here and query for a specific post. So we're going to here query, and we're going to do post by primary key. We're going to supply it with an ID. And then over here, what we can do is we want to, let's query for the title of the post as well as the content. And also we can query now for the comments. So we can query for, the ID, the actual content. And maybe if you want to show the user, you can also show the user. But of course, we have to go ahead and define that inside of the relationship, because right now there is no relationship. So what we can do is we can go to the comments, go to relationship, and we can say we want to show the user. So we can save that. And now if we go here and then we go to user, we can actually get the username if we want to. Because now we can get all of the posts and all the comments as well as the associated user to the username. So you can see that we get that data. And that pretty much sums it up. Of course, we can do a lot of different things. Like, for example, we can add a limit here. If we have multiple records, let me go ahead and try to add multiple records for you guys. Let's go here. Let's insert a row. Just say, I don't know, hello. And then here, let's just say 1, 1, save. Save again. Let's add as much as we can here. All right, awesome. So now if we were to make this query, you can see that we get all of the comments. But of course, now what we can do is we can add a limit. Maybe we want to do some sort of pagination. So we can have this limit right over here, say limit 3. Limit 3. We can also have an order by. So if we want to order by the content for some reason, or let's say order by the content, sure. You can say order by the content ascending or descending. So you can see now all of the hellos are first, whereas because we're doing ascending, so that's alphabetical order. We can also do descending, which is going to be this first. So A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. Yeah, H comes first. Okay. All right. So that's how we can order. Of course, you can probably order by something more useful. We can also add conditionals. So we can say where, over here you can see here all the different options that we have. So we can have where the, we can do where the content is, over here you can see all the different things, equal than, greater than, equal to. So you can say where the content is equal to, and we can say hello. What I love about this is you can create the queries really easily. You can see all the different things that we can do. So now we only get the hellos. We don't only get anything else. But of course you can do, you know, greater than or equal to. Let's actually look at some of the different filters that we can do. Let's add let's go ahead and add some more users here, so we can have some more cool data. So let's add Jaw. Jaw is going to be a male, so we'll do false for him. Let's say 25. Let's do Crystal, and then Crystal's going to be a female. Let's say 54. Let's add Morgan. Morgan's going to be a male. That is 70 whatever. Let's add another, what else should we add, guys? Let's add Anthony, which is also going to be a male. That is very, very young, 6 years old. So insert that. Let's add one more girl. Let's add, who should we add? I can't think of names on the spot. Let's add Selena. True, Selena is like 36. So let's insert that. So now we have a bunch of different users. Now in here, let's do some queries where we can actually filter by these users. So let's go here and we can say users. Now, of course, I always encourage, let's actually really just look at what we have right over here. So we can do limits, we can do where. So we're gonna do some conditions here. So we're gonna say where. And let's ask just for the user name and their age and their gender. So over here we get that. So what we want is, let's say we want all of the males. So we can say where the gender, as you can see here, the gender, and then over here we can say is equal to, is greater than, or less than. In this case we want to use is equal to. So is equal to, and we're gonna say is equal to false to get all the males. So now we get all of the males. If we wanted all of the females, we can do true. And then we get Holly, Crystal, and Selena. Awesome. We can also do greater than or less than. So maybe we want all of the, let's say we want all of the, we want the age to be greater than 10 or maybe greater than 30. So now if we were to query for this, we get all of the older people. if we want greater than or equal to. We can also do in, so we can say something like where the age is in. This one's kind of weird, so we can say, oh, actually no, let's get rid of this, let's get rid of that, and let's go here, let's get rid of this, let's make it like an empty, and over here we can say where the age is in 10. So let's query for this. So we get nothing. So I think what we can do here is supply this with an array, and then maybe we can say 36 in here, and we should get Selena. So what this does is it's just gonna get all of the users that have an age that is in here. So right now there's only 36, but I think we can add like, I don't remember any of the other ages. Let's add 25. I think Jaw was 25. Yeah, so you can see here now we get Jaw. You can also query by like is null, is not in, is not equal, is less than. But this is simple stuff. If you want to have like really complicated queries, so maybe you want to get all of the females that are older than 30, you can use an and for this. So you can say and over here you can say and gender is equal to true. So you want to get all the females. And then over here, you have to supply it with, well, another thing. So over here, inside of the and, you can also say age is greater than 30. So over here, let's actually just enter a little bit. You can see how the query is going to look. Let me just go here, enter this. You can see the query kind of looks something like so. So we have and over here. Maybe we can enter that a little bit as well. We have and then we have this object that has these two things in there, these two conditions. And now if you were to query for this, you can see we get Crystal and Selena. And of course we could do or not. I hope you guys kind of get the point of this. The last thing that I want to show you is updating things and deleting things. This is the last thing that I haven't showed you yet. So let's say we want to update a comment. So let's go over here, let's perform a mutation, and what we want to do is update a comment. Now, of course, what we need to do in order to update a comment is to, well, specify, or not, we can update comments, but I want to update a comment by primary key. So what we want to do is we want to specify the ID of the thing, of course. That's the very first thing, so the primary key column. So this is going to be the primary key column. And let's say I want to update the comment that has an ID of 5. So that's the very first thing. Now the next thing we want to do is we want to start updating. So here we're going to do primary key. So once we find the element, what we want to do is, well, define exactly what we want to update. And we do that with _set. Now in here we can, well, define everything. So we can say we want to update the content to this is a good course. So this is a good course. And that's all you have to do. Now, if you want to update more columns, such as, for example, I don't know, if you want to update the, there is no other columns in here, but let's say we also had a title in here and we wanted to update it, you can add that in here in the set. So now what you can do is also ask for the thing that you want. Let's say you want the content. Now, if you update it, this mutation should perform. And if you go over here to the comments and you browse through them, you should see hello. Oh, no. Let me refresh here. It should have updated. I'm not sure if the data is a little bit stale. I hope not. Let's see. Hello. It's not update. It didn't update for some reason. Which one has an ID of 5? Oh, let's go to the next. Oh, there's a little bit of pagination here. Okay, let's go all the way to the next. So this one got updated, and you can see here that this got updated, as you can see. So let's go ahead and try to delete this one now. So let's delete the ID of 5, which was at the very end. So let's go here. Let's perform another mutation. Let's say mutation. We're going to say delete. We can delete comments, or we can just delete a comment. Maybe I can show you guys how we can delete comments later. So we can do here delete comment. And then over here, let's just always look at the reference. So we need to supply it with an ID. We're going to say 5. And then I think that's pretty much it. I think we can also ask for whatever it is that we want. In this case, the content. And as you can see here, we deleted this right over here. If we went to our database and tried to query for this, we won't find it. So let's just to prove it to you, if we go here and then we go to all the way to ID of 5, you can see that we have no ID of 5 anywhere. It got deleted. Let's see now, the last thing is maybe deleting multiple things. So let's go here and let's do a delete comments. And over here, we can actually add a where clause, and we can add the same conditions that we want. So we can have and, not, or, because we're deleting multiple things here. So what we could do is we could delete everything, or we could specifically delete all the comments that we want. So maybe we want to delete all of the comments that are, that of the user that has the ID that is equal to 1. And I think that's going to be like everybody. So the ID that's equal to 1. And of course here we can ask for maybe the content or the affected rows. We can just get, let's see here, what we get from the affected rows. I think we can just ask for the affected rows. Yes. So now if we were to execute this, you can see here we got 24 comments deleted for that user. And now again, if we went to the database, we shouldn't see any comments because I believe all of those comments belong to that one user. Yep. All right, that's pretty much Hasura. Hasura is really great, and there's actually a lot of different things that you can do here. It's really, really great. Hopefully this video kind of showed you how nice it is and how easy it is to set up a GraphQL API by utilizing something as cool as Hasura.